Thank you very much. This is a fantastic event. Thank you for TownGreen2025 and all the volunteers that have worked towards making this happen. It's always great. There's so many people interested in both clean energy, renewable energy, reducing our carbon footprint, recycling. There's so much going on in Gloucester and Greater Cape Ann as well. It's always good to have everyone in one forum to kind of bounce around ideas. And what I want to do is just let everyone know what the city's been doing for the past 5 or 6 years. So I've been with the city for a little over 2 years now, and I work in the planning department, but I also am managing some of the clean energy initiatives and energy reduction projects for the city, mainly through the Green Communities program. Also, I'm a resident of Essex as well, so I'm here in Cape Ann, and I'm personally, this is something of great interest to me, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. So let me just make sure this works. If I should hit the arrow.
Just check for you. Should work. Alright, hold on, we'll just go back. Come on, baby. I'm going to forward the slide for you.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So just an outline of what I'll be talking about. I'll describe our process in Gloucester as far as the administration, and we have a great volunteer group, the Clean Energy Commission, that I want to make sure get the recognition they deserve. I'll talk to you, I'll just explain the Green Communities program. Gloucester was designated a green community in 2010, and that provides funding from the state to do a lot of the energy reduction projects we've been able to accomplish the past 5 or 6 years. In addition to green communities, there's also other funding sources we've taken advantage of. One, the procurement of electric vehicles. Of course, we have those 2 wind turbines. We have 3 wind turbines in the city. 2 of them have a direct relationship with the city. I'll also talk about some of the solar feasibility study that we completed this summer and where we're going forward. So the Gloucester team, I guess I'm missing 2 bullet points here. Of course, there's the general public and all the volunteers that work beyond the boards and commissions that provide a lot of the force to get some of these projects done. So anyone who's been part of that, thank you very much. And we also have a volunteer group, the Clean Energy Commission, that's appointed by the mayor. I believe they've been in existence since around 2009, but there has always been a group that supported the mayor in clean energy initiatives, and it is the Clean Energy Commission that has spearheaded a lot of the projects that I'll show you today, particularly getting the green community designation. So that's a commission of 7 members. They meet monthly. I highly recommend, if anyone has the time, to come sit in their meetings. It's a high-level discussion of very important issues, and they get a lot of great guests. For instance, we had someone from the Coast Guard come in and present on tidal energy, some of the pilot projects in Maine. They also have a website off the city site that has their minutes as well, so I encourage you to review if you're interested. I work in the Community Development Department, so I support that Clean Energy Commission, and I also manage the Green Communities program. A lot of the projects, once they go through the grant funding, my portion, they get handed off to our Department of Public Works, and related to the Green Community program, we have about $2 million worth of projects that have been completed and managed by the Department of Public Works, and there's many other projects that I won't mention here, but it's great to have a Public Works Department that's very forward-thinking and with our and great facility management. And I want to make sure I have sound for this, because I do want to thank the mayor, and our mayor is actually here today, so thank you for coming this morning. And as far as, and I should have had these bullet points reversed, because it all falls within what the direction is of the administration, and we've been very fortunate for the past 5 or 6 years to have an executive that has been forward-thinking and promoting pursuing both energy reduction and renewables. So just briefly, what Communities program is. It's funded through a state Green Communities Act of 2008. So, and there's 5 criteria in order to become a green community. So once you hit those 5 criteria, you are eligible to apply for grant funding to help fund projects that reduce energy consumption. And it's focused mainly on reducing energy consumption. There's other programs that we participate in. For instance, we recently completed a coastal vulnerability study to deal with sea level rise. So we're trying to do it on every end, but this one particularly focuses on reducing energy consumption. One of the 5 criteria is to have a 20% energy reduction plan, which we have in place right now that we're working on. We also are required to purchase only fuel-efficient vehicles, and the state provides mile per gallon requirements for when we purchase a new truck or purchase a new car for administrative purposes. Number 5 of the criteria is adopting a stretch energy code. Essentially, it's a code it's stricter than the base building code, and it produces buildings, mostly residential, some commercial, that are 15 to 20% more energy efficient. So I have a slide on that too as well. Here are all the green communities. There's about 134 of them currently. Gloucester was one of the early adopters. 2010. I can tell you I'm also a part-time planner for Essex as well, and Essex just submitted their green communities application. So Manchester is also a green community, so all we need now is Rockport, and I've heard that they're looking into that now, that we would have an entire Cape Ann green community of municipalities, which I think would be fantastic. So like I said, the program provides funding for the city to do projects, but it also provides other services as well. In order to have your 20% plan, you need to have a baseline. You need to measure how you're doing. So the state does provide that software for us and does provide some technical assistance as well. And like I said, there's funding, and it's proactive. They want to see projects done. So it's a really good program that we're a part of. So as far as tracking, this is a screenshot of our Mass Energy Insight. It's a web-based tracking tool of our energy consumption. I know the numbers there are very small. In the top left, you can see how we've been decreasing our energy consumption since 2009. We're about 13% reduction of what our baseline was back in 2009. And it also breaks down. So the blue is buildings, the small bars of yellow, that's our street lights. You can see our vehicles in red, and our water system in taupe, whatever that color is. And it really breaks down to individual buildings, and it's a great tool to see where we are and how we track our energy consumption. And then the next slide, just an example of some of the other tabs that we can use to manage projects. That matrix kind of shows in the top part, those are our biggest energy consumers. So right at the top of that is Gloucester High School. Makes sense, it's our largest building. Right below that is the O'Malley Middle School, the second largest building. And then there's also on the bottom, the horizontal, the x-axis is how efficient the building is by square foot. So I think, I can't read there right now, but I believe one of the elementary schools could use some tightening up. So that's another tool that we use to measure our success. Like I mentioned, we've had over $2 million of projects implemented that were partially funded through the Green Community Program. And we've so far been awarded $688,000 of Green Communities grants. And normally the state provides funding opportunities every year. So this past year we were awarded $240,000 to do an LED streetlight conversion. The year before we converted the heating system at the O'Malley Middle School from oil to gas with a high efficiency boiler. In addition to that, we also take advantage of what National Grid could give us as far as rebates and incentives. So of these $2 million worth of projects, $500,000 has been provided from National Grid. So you can see that combined with the Green Communities Program, we're cutting our costs by half. So it really helps to get these projects done, because they're very expensive. Just a couple pictures of some of the projects that have been funded. To the left, you have a variable frequency drive. So that's a pump, essentially, that pumps our heating system. Before that box on the wall was installed, the pump either goes on or off. So it's either full tilt or there's nothing at all. This drive allows to ramp up and down the speed of the pump, and that significantly reduces electrical consumption. This is at the high school, and you can see that one of the big boilers at the high school as well. So these projects aren't particularly sexy. They're usually down in the mechanical room, but they're so very important for some of our large buildings. The next one, this is our energy management systems. To the left you have the high school, to the right you have the middle school. So our two largest buildings have the equipment and technology for our facility managers to oversee what's happening at our buildings in real live time. So it's not only is it good to implement and bring in new equipment, but you also have to track and measure. And this is an example of that. It was partially funded through our Green Community Grant. And a lot of lighting has also been completed through the Green Communities Grant. 17 buildings so far, municipal buildings, have gone through lighting upgrades. And this is a picture of the library. To the left you have your, I don't know whether they're incandescent or halogen, but converted to the T12 highly energy efficient compact fluorescents. Now this was done, I believe, 3 years ago, so I think we're probably due for another lighting upgrade now that LEDs are becoming less costly. So we're constantly looking to upgrade our lighting, because that's a huge savings, and it's also what is considered the low-lying fruit, because it's a lot cheaper to do. And then, so not only interior, exterior lighting as well. I believe this is at the high school. To the left you have probably a metal halide or high pressure sodium bulb, and to the right I believe those are LED. So like I mentioned before, we did recently complete a boiler conversion at the O'Malley Middle School. So these are the original boilers. They're oil fired. They were probably less than 80% energy efficient. They date to the early 70s. So the next slide will show what was installed. So we ran a new gas line at no cost from National Grid to the middle school, and converted to these high efficient gas boilers. They're about 96% efficient. And by I say we, I was able to get the grant funding through the Community Development Department, and the DPW managed this project, and it's a significant energy savings. I believe it's up to 20% energy reduction for the O'Malley Middle School. The fund also pays for technical assistance, as I mentioned. You probably can't see the font, but this was some technical assistance through the purchase of our streetlights from National Grid. By purchasing our streetlights, and we bought them for $1, we were able to save almost $200,000 through avoided maintenance from National Grid. And the other reason, so you purchase your streetlights to reduce your maintenance costs, but you also purchase them because now we own them and we can do what we want with them, and that's why we're able to convert to LED streetlights. Stretch energy code, I did have a slide here. You can see on the right, I don't know, maybe some people here are familiar. If you do any new residential construction and certain commercial construction and certain renovations are required to abide by the stretch energy code. And like I said, it produces buildings that are 15 to 20% more energy efficient. It is a performance-based code, so there's not a prescriptive method where you have to put in a certain type and amount of insulation, but you kind of look at your building as a whole and you use a HERS scorer, and your building gets a score. And to the right you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it actually, but 65 is what the required score your building should get in order to pass the stretch energy code. So that's 65. A standard home is about 100. I think it's a little bit higher in New England. And if you get a HERS rating of 0, you have a zero energy home essentially. So that's how that works. And in the bottom right corner is a picture of our thermal imaging camera, which was purchased through Green Communities funding for our buildings department. And essentially it's a heat camera, so they can go in and check and make sure that installation is done properly. So that's very quickly what the Green Communities program is. And but like I said, we also take advantage of other programs. So through Mass DEP, we were able to obtain a grant for leasing 3 all-electric Nissan Leafs, and these are currently at the City Hall Annex on 3 Pond Road. We have 3 all-electric vehicles there. We also have a dual-headed electric vehicle charging station that is available for public use. I just wanted to make that note. And we're looking to procure 3 more. We actually recently got another grant from Mass DEP, and we're going to be installing a new electric vehicle charging station at City Hall as well that would be available for the public to charge. And then the next slide is just a nice picture. We had an opening, I guess, or a celebration of the new streetlights, and we have our mayor in the center and 4 members of our Clean Energy Commission and Councilor Lundberg and Councilor McGarry as well. So that was a fun event. So I'll pivot now to wind turbines. So we have 3 in the city. 2 of them, there is a partnership between the private owners of the turbines and the city. And those 2 turbines have a nameplate rating of 2 megawatts. The tower is about 262 feet tall. And when you count the blades, the total height of those is about 400 feet. And you can go to the next slide. And so I wasn't here for that. So Greg Cadamatori, my boss, the planning director, was here for that. And I know that this was a tremendous effort this is another example of having strong leadership and a very agreeable public as far as promoting green energy and having a volunteer commission as well. Because I know that it's a tremendous effort, and not a lot of municipalities are able to get let alone 1 turbine, but 3 turbines in the city. So that's a tremendous effort. And it's a complicated arrangement, and I'll try to briefly, because I only have a few minutes here, explain how it works. But the turbines are privately owned, privately maintained, and are on private property. And we have a power purchase agreement with that private owner where National Grid credits our electricity accounts based on how much energy is produced by those turbines. So essentially anything that's produced by those wind turbines, the city purchases that energy. That's pretty much the most basic way I could say it. And I know this slide kind of talks about money going this way and energy going that way. Happens. And when we get that check from National Grid, that's the estimate. Between $200,000 and $400,000 is what the city gets, and there's also a payment of lieu of tax as well. So I think I have a slide coming up of what that means. I thought these were great pictures, and I'm sure everyone lived this experience. I wish I was here. It was fantastic, and we had the blade signings as well. It seemed like a really great process. This is a slide of how they're performing. This is a 2013 slide, but the reason why I included it is just to show how they produce based on the season. So when it spikes, that's the spring and fall. The summer is very calm, and then the winter has a big uptick as well. I think the next slide, it's a lot of numbers. These numbers are actually published in the Gloucester Daily Times. They're from our city treasurer, and I'm happy to provide these numbers to anyone who's interested. But the two yellow highlighted cells, one of them is what the turbines produced in fiscal year 2015. So from July 2014 to June 2015, about 8.5 million kilowatt hours. What that means, the city as a municipality consumes about 10 million kilowatt hours. So about 85% of our energy that's consumed by the city came from the wind turbines this year, and they have the ability to produce 10 million kilowatt hours and beyond. And what does that mean as far as revenue to the city? About $340,000 of revenue to the city, and that revenue is from the savings of our electric bills. And on top of that, there's also that payment in lieu of tax. So you can see that in fiscal year 15, we're getting close to or approaching that 400,000 max estimate. So they're performing very healthy, and I think the great part about them is that we don't have to maintain them, nor do we own them. So it's a great partnership for the city. So if the turbines produce if they produce 10 million kilowatt hours, which they can do, what does that mean? That's the equivalent of powering 725 homes. It's avoiding 11.5 million pounds of CO2, and that could fuel 1,100 cars, just a rule of thumb. So we are fortunate to have three wind turbines in the city. We're always looking for additional opportunities for renewable energy, and recently we did get a grant from the Department of Energy to work with Meister Consulting to do a solar feasibility study for municipal properties and buildings. So this is just the cover of it, and it's available if anyone would like to take a look at it. And it identifies a few sites that would be suitable for large-scale solar, with the caveat that right now the net metering limit has been reached for municipalities. So it's unclear of how cities and towns will go forward working with National Grid on future projects. I know there's some legislature being proposed right now, so that kind of slows down the process on our half, but it's definitely something we'll be looking into in the future, not only for extra revenue for the city, but there's also ways to put roof-mounted solar on buildings that'll help power them during power outages, and some coastal resiliency opportunities as well. So that's something we've been looking into. Additional projects, like I mentioned, we're getting more electric cars. And as far as oil to gas conversions, O'Malley is not the only building that DPW has been focusing on. There have been other projects, they just haven't been under my purview in the Green Communities program. But there's been a huge effort to get rid of as many inefficient oil burners as possible, and when possible, connect to our gas lines. So recently the Beeman Elementary School was converted to gas. City Hall was done a couple of years ago. Some of the neighborhood fire stations were also done, either connected to gas or a high efficiency oil burner was installed. And we're constantly looking to do lighting upgrades. I think there's one more slide. Oh, and on our next Green Communities project, as I mentioned, is the conversion to LED. And I believe everyone here probably knows that we are doing an LED test right now. There's 4 fixtures out on Washington Street, just south of Gee Avenue. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the test. Received over 50 emails and several phone calls from people, so we're definitely getting feedback. What I've heard overwhelmingly is that the community supports installing streetlights at the lower lighting temperature. There's a lot of science that's come out recently since we started this project. I've been working on this for almost 2 years now, and over the summer, there's a lot of Dark Skies Association came out with a study that some of the traditional LED lights are at a very high degree Kelvin temperature, and that emits some blue light that's bad for circadian rhythms for animals and people. It's also contributes glare to the night sky. So we've considered that, and so 3 of those options are the 3,000 degree Kelvin light, which is very similar to what our current high pressure sodium fixtures emit, but they are considerably more energy efficient. So the goal is, and I think we're getting close to implementing this project, is to choose a fixture that is low emittance of color temperature, that produces a nice warm light that is also energy efficient. So this project is estimated to reduce our streetlight energy consumption by 68%. So I'm very excited about that. So just in summary, I know that this is a forum about there's what the municipality is doing, there's what the community as a whole is doing, but some lessons that I've learned personally. It's really important to have good leadership and to have a team, both of volunteered and paid staff, and to get technical assistance when you have questions that need to be answered. You need to establish a baseline to figure out where you've come from. So and that it to set a goal, and having that 5-year energy reduction plan is always great to refer to. So once we do the LEDs and we know that's ready to go, the next grant opportunity that comes up, well, what's next? And I can tell you that we've done a lot of the large infrastructure projects. There may be more coming down the pipe. But also behavior is very important as well, because you can install a high efficiency boiler in the old Melee school, but all of a sudden the gymnasium is being used 4 times as much as it used to, so you don't get that energy reduction. So definitely a balance in using that energy management system program, and learning the behaviors of buildings is huge. And you have to measure your results. And I think this is my last slide. I forgot to put my contact information on this, but I do have business cards with me. My telephone number is on the city website in the Community Development Department. But thank you for sitting in on this. It looks like it's being recorded, and if anyone has any questions, I think if we have time I could take some. Thank you. So the question was whether we're considering a dimmable system for our street lights. Yes and no. So the lights that we will install have the ability to be dimmable. So we're going to be installing a 7-pin control. That's where the photocell goes that turns the light on and off. But since we're putting a 7-pin system, it'll allow us in the future to install something like a node and have this wireless system that can control whether we can dim lights. Right now, though, the way National Grid bills the city, the lights are unmetered, so they pretty much have a calculation of how many hours a year the lights are on, and they just bill us that way. So even if we dim the lights, since they're not metered, we wouldn't get the energy savings. So right now, the cost of the controls is at the moment cost prohibitive, but that price may drop, and National Grid may change their billing in the future, and we'll be ready when that comes to put controls that will allow dimming. Yes.
On every slide, you have the seal of Gloucester on it, the schooner, the seaport. But I've seen nothing. I haven't heard anything in the last 10 years that Gloucester will take the lead on producing a green fleet, a green fishing fleet, look for a green commercial fleet. There's no initiative at all. In fact, the Innovate Gloucester seems to exist as it's not that hard. In fact, when I go downtown at the Fisherman's Memorial, I find those beautiful big banners next to the memorial big fishing boats. They're all superbly high carbon boats that we don't want to have anything too much anymore with. And yet you folks don't seem to resonate with any of this. Because I've been going over, my agenda. We've been trying to push a green fishing fleet for everybody's benefit, but we're not going anywhere. We get no engagement. I hope the new mayor will engage. I think he understands the logic better than anybody before. Where are you guys standing on that?
Well, I guess, so Susanna points out on the bottom right corner of these slides, I have the Innovate Gloucester logo, which is also on our electric vehicles. So
since I'm here, I talk to the fishing folks. I talk to them, unless someone wants to give them 100% the industry is failing, and they're trying to innovate. They're not even fixing and repairing the boats. We have a railway that is diminishing and not even repairing boats because the fishing vessels are either doing their own cleaning, no one's hauling up, the boats are falling apart, they are old, and right now they don't have even money to sustain or pay their own house bills, mortgages, let alone try to build a new boat. If someone wants to give them 100% brand new boat, built it and everything else, that's great, they try. But the fact is, no more shipbuilding. Maybe with this new steam that's coming out, we can build maybe smaller boats and look at some of the lots of boats that we need to build. She did build a wonderful boat, a great boat. Unfortunately, it's going out of our ocean. She don't want to maritime. She tried 100% on certain things. But when you keep saying industry right now has to sustain itself on what because you don't come forward and say, we made a brand new boat 100% clean energy, which can't be anywhere. We're trying to innovate them and actually help them. If you don't ask for it,
next question.
Pretty related, any word about further developments with the Kleinfelder report that was done earlier in the past spring about our vulnerabilities to ocean rise?
Sure. So I believe you're asking about the climate vulnerability assessment study that was completed. I forget when that was completed. It was within the past year from Kleinfelder was our consultant. So I think Julia Neisel will be here this afternoon from Coastal Zone Management, and they're the organization that provided the grant funding for that program. In addition to that, that was about a $50,000 project. In addition to that, the city received a grant award of $340,000 for the Little River project, which is currently under construction. And that kind of stems from that project. The Little River project is basically removing the concrete fish ladder by the water treatment plant and restoring to its natural river stream to allow passage of essentially alewife. So that's one project that was completed, and having that coastal vulnerability study made our application for that project very competitive. But in general, that plan gives us a map of when certain types of facilities need to be improved. We need to that plan and see, well, when we have to replace pump stations down Thatcher Road, how high what's our, if we do have to raise them, or do we have to barricade them during storms? So it's a document that's been shared with all our departments, and when large capital improvements come along, we'll use that plan in our decision making.
I wish we had more time for questions, but we have to move on to our next speaker. So please join me in thanking Matt. Thank you, Matt. Yep. Can you leave me around for a couple minutes if anybody has any questions?